WSKY SkyRock Talk Radio, where the rock don't stop, baby. A-Town, we're on the air. Welcome, I'm the voice behind the rock, your host, rocking at the speed of light. Rockin' Rog, the living legend, the man of the hour, the man with the power, the hit maker, the record breaker, the man with style and grace, a pretty face, the one who will make your back crack and your liver quiver, who's dined with kings and queens, who slept in alleys and ate pork and beans when the others are smiling and joking. Rockin Rog is cooking and smoking right here on WSKY SkyRock Talk Radio. We're starting profiling, limousine riding, jet flying in, willing, dealing like no man can. So lock it in and rip that knob off of it, baby. Welcome to the place for perseverance, passion, purpose, struggles, and breakthroughs, friendships and new beginnings, the place that changes the way you live. We've been diving into setbacks that were really setups for major success stories. We have met some incredible, amazing people, exactly like you and like me, but they've done a few things a little bit differently, a little bit longer. And that's what's made them amazing. Let's remind ourselves every day that we're only one small decision away from our next success story. I am so excited. This is Season 2, Episode 5. Thank you for joining us, giving us feedback, words of encouragement. If you haven't already, the best way to support WSKY SkyRock Talk Radio is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can now hear us on all podcast platforms. I am amazed at this. Spotify for podcasters, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, amazing Amazon Alexa, Chromecast Player, Google Podcasts, Overcast, MyTuner, web browser, XO Player, iHeartRadio, and of course YouTube. Thank you for listening all around the world. This podcast is coming from the United States, but we have got listeners, oh my goodness, all over the world, from France, United Kingdom, Algeria, Switzerland, Belgium, Italy, Brazil, Congo, Canada, Poland, Ivory Coast, Romania, and so many more. We see you, we hear you, we love you, thank you. Like us, subscribe, share, be a blessing to someone else, because we're in this together. We're coming together to build the strongest rocking, reaching our community, our city, our country, your city, your community, where you're listening. It's called a rocking movement. Reaching our community, our city, our country with kindness the social media in your area has ever seen. Because the more we share our story, your story, the more lives we can change. Thank you for joining this movement. Join our Facebook group, WSKY SkyRock Talk Radio. Hit us up on our website, skyrocktalkradio.com. Thanks for listening. Click on our merch link on our website. Order you a free, absolutely free SkyRock t-shirt. Email us your name, your address, your size, the color you would love for your shirt to be. And if you're asking how can you support WSKY SkyRock Talk Radio, once again, the best way is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, if you're asking how to support us financially, I say it this way. If you can't, don't. But if you can, give. Because every dollar counts towards spreading kindness. There is no silent treatment about our future. The future is loud, and if we're too quiet, it will not hear what we have to say. Hello, do you hear me? Let's take ownership of our voice, and let's make it work to benefit. Let's avoid talking about people or being involved in negative conversations. This is toxic behavior that brings us no closer to the successful conversation with the better us. down the road. Let's use words to build and not destroy. Let's build ourselves up every day. Let's build everybody. Let's build somebody up every day by saying, I love you. Great job. You're so much better. Wow, you're looking good. These statements get the ball rolling in our court and not in the hands of those who don't think so highly of us. Each and every day we must control our inner and external conversations. Let's speak truth. Speak it of ourselves. Don't tell ourselves any more lies. We are so special and we're here for a reason and not just for a season. Let's arise every day and let's shine. Let's keep moving. Keep dreaming, keep pressing. Let's work on ourselves, work on our goals, because we're endowed with power from on high. We're fully equipped to make great things happen. Let's utilize our gifts. Let's utilize our talents. Let's utilize other resources that God has blessed us with to affect our generation. We cannot. Neither is quitting acceptable. Let's be the solution to our world. Let's create services. Let's create products to meet the needs of our generation. Love and kindness to you. Be kind and love always, person to person, one kindness at a time. And let's reach our community, our city, our country with kindness. 6 decades ago, an estimated 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in the nation's capital. The pastor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech was on that day. It was August 28, 1963. And that speech has emerged as a symbol of the push for racial and social equality. August 28, 1963 marks the 60th anniversary of I Have a Dream speech by Pastor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. 60 years ago, Pastor Martin Luther King talked about a dream, and 60 years later, today, I ask this very question: where are the dreamers? Dr. King's 1963 speech helped pave the way for major federal voting rights legislation, as well as the landmark 1964 Civil Rights Act. But there was pushback, and there was violence that followed, and many of y'all know this. Just 2 weeks after the gathering, 4 black children were killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. And just a year later, voting right marchers were brutally beaten while crossing the Selma Bridge. Many today, many this week, many this year, marking the 60th anniversary, are discussing civil rights abuses, such as systematic racism and hate speech and hate crimes and police brutality and gun violence and poverty, and even the loss of voting rights in some locations. And I've said this on this podcast, and I will continue to say this: racism is hatred, and racism is not of God. Skin is not sin. Sin is in the heart. We're going to spend some time here in just a few minutes listening to the Associated Press reporter Gary Fields talk about the 1963 March on Washington. And we're going to honor the pastor, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, by listening to his I Have a Dream speech.
People didn't understand or didn't really know what they were going to get that day. They were just hopeful that people would turn out. And what they got was what I think might still be the largest gathering of individuals here in Washington, D.C. on a march for equality and civil rights. About 250,000 people showed up that day. Buses came from everywhere. They lined the Constitution Avenue. They stretched out from the Capitol building pretty much back down to 16th Street. People came wearing their best clothes. They were wearing their Sunday best. So not only did you have these thousands of people coming, but they came dressed like they were coming to a church service. So you're looking at thousands of people who had come to talk about inequality, to talk about jobs and fairness for all people in the United States. This wasn't just black folks who showed up here. It was, you had white activists, you had people from all different ethnicities who had come to basically call on America to be who we say we want America to be. Dr. Martin Luther King, when he got up, the speech that he delivered, the march itself has kind of been boiled down to the last 5 minutes of that speech, where he talks about, I have a dream today, and where he lays out this vision for what that dream is. And what his dream was what he thought America could become and what America could be if it lived up to the edict of equality for all men and fairness and justice for all men regardless of race and creed. And he looked out, and I've had a couple of historians say it to me, Jonathan Higby, and one of them, he said, he looked out, he's got 250,000 people standing there on the mall for as far as the eye can see. And he decided, hey, this is one really big congregation, so I'm just going to go for it. And who was going to stop him? It was Martin Luther King Jr. When you start talking about wanting to live in a nation where people, when he talked about the character of my kids, what he's really talking about is people one day living in a world where you look at me as an individual. You don't look at me immediately and see my color and start making conclusions about who you think I am because of my race. You get to know me. You communicate with me. You speak to me. You get to know my dreams, my fears, the things that I want, because you'll discover that a lot of the things that I want are probably similar to yours, that our path forward are kind of similar because we want the same thing for this nation. We want it to be a great nation and to actually live up to all things and to be a beacon to other people who still try to come here.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last.